Well, tonight David Cameron has been taking part in an interview with BuzzFeed. In it, he was asked to pick which political figures he would prefer to work with in a hypothetical coalition.
OK, Nick Clegg or Ed Miliband?
Nick Clegg.
Ed Miliband or David Miliband?
I don't really know either of them that well, but I'm hoping to form a government without either of them.
Do you ever sneak out of Downing Street sort of in the evening and try and lose your security detail and for once actually feel a little bit free?
No, because they are, you know, they're trained killers, and I think they'd catch up with me pretty fast.
So you once said, and forgive my language, too many tweets make a twat. Is that still a view you ascribe to?
I think when I said that, and it was not that particularly advisable at the time, I said that. The point I was making is that politicians, we are judged by what we say, and we should always try and think carefully before we say something. And the danger with Twitter is you just loose off your opinion, often late at night.
Do you ever tweet yourself?
I have a Twitter account, and I tweet, but I don't actually.
Have you ever checked your mentions and seen the sort of things that people say about you on that?
I have, yeah, a little bit.
And
yes.
what do you make when you see that?
Well, you've got to take the rough with the smooth in this job. But the point I was making about too many tweets is, you know, you've got to be careful. You've got to think before you speak in politics. And there is a danger with Twitter. And I think it's been borne out by events. I mean, some people have got themselves into the most unbelievable trouble by tweeting a picture or tweeting some words without thinking first what they're doing.
Do you have a personal email address that you use outside of work?
Yes.
And do you ever worry about the security risks of that?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think you have to be very alert to all these things. You know, but I mean, if you're referring back to the earlier conversation, you know, I use you know, Gmail and things like that. I've used email accounts for you know, for friends and stuff. But I have a government. I have an iPhone, which is mostly sort of family and friends, and I have a BlackBerry which I use for work, which is BlackBerry is very good for email.
You must be the last person using a BlackBerry in the
No, well, they're very good. Funny enough, they're good. The government has a sort of BlackBerry service, and they're good. They're very good for emails, actually. Good for emails and documents.
I mean, one of the filter things that you brought in while Prime Minister was this requirement that when you sign up for a new internet service nowadays, you have to opt in to certain corners of the internet involving certain adult material.
I think that's good.
Have you opted in at Downing Street?
No, now when you set up your account, the filters are automatically on, and we confirm they should be automatically on.
So do you feel that you'd have that on if you were?
Yeah, well, I've got three children of primary school age, and you know, they get to find out the code on your iPad pretty quickly. And, you know, it's reassuring to know. I think the government's done some very good things on this. I think actually having filters switched on, I think, is good. And I think going back to the earlier conversation, what we managed to achieve with the internet companies on stopping child abuse online has been genuinely groundbreaking. They said, this is really important, they said to us originally, you cannot do anything about this. You can't have search terms that don't return results. And we said, you've got to be able to do that. How can you have people searching on the internet for, you know, disgusting illegal acts and return searches? To start with, they said, look, that's free speech. And we said, no, you can't. Now, to be fair to them, Google and others have banned 40,000 search terms, not just in Britain, but around the world. And that is restricting child pornography and child abuse online. And that is a really good thing. So
one issue that some of the parents in the office brought up was the idea of, do you let your children have mobile phones with unfettered access to the internet?
No, I don't. My daughter's got an iTouch, but everything is quite strictly controlled in terms of screen time. We have the filters on, I think, for things like my iPad that I've got in Downing Street. But this is the conversation every parent in the country is having with their children. What age should they be when they can, you know, have a Facebook account or when they can have unfettered access to a mobile phone? We're not at that. So we got an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, 4-year-old, so we're not at that stage. It's in Britain.
So earlier this year, you talked about how you didn't want to have any encrypted messaging service that the security services couldn't access.
I didn't actually say that. Should we sort of stand back? Let me try and explain what I was talking about. I know this is of huge interest to the audience here. No, that's not the words I used. I'll tell you exactly what I said. And I'm going to take a bit of time over this, if you'll forgive me, because I think it's so important. Because if you're Prime Minister, your first responsibility is the nation's security and trying to combat the terrorism that we face. Now, in this country, as in many other countries, there's always been the ability, if the Home Secretary signs a legal warrant, to intercept your communication. So that used to be steaming open a letter between terrorists and reading it. It used to be being able to listen to a fixed line phone call or a mobile phone call. The point I was making is we shouldn't sit back and just say it's okay for there to be completely safe and unregulated spaces on the internet where terrorists can talk to each other. We should be working with the companies to try and make sure that we can, in extremis, with the signature of a Home Secretary warrant, try to find out what those communications are. Now, I think that is responsible, I think that is reasonable, I think the overwhelming majority of the British people would say, yes, of course, I don't want people routinely reading my emails or interfering in my calls, but if there's a suspicion of terrorist activity, I want the government to be able to keep this country safe.
So you're not a WhatsApp or a Snapchat user yourself?
I'm not a Snapchat user myself, no, but the point about any of these technologies is that we should be having a conversation with them to try and make sure there's not a safe space for terrorists to communicate with each other. Because the truth is, if there is, we're going to be at greater risk.
Your favourite current Aston Villa player?
Probably Benteke, because he's been so valuable the last few years.
When did you last have dinner with a Conservative Party donor?
Probably about a week ago. I do a lot of fundraising, and I'm not ashamed of that because, we don't have a system of taking taxpayers' money and spending it on party campaigns. We have to go out and raise the money. And I don't have the trade unions who give Labour about £14 million a year. We have to raise every penny. And so, yes, I do. I go out and raise money from people who think the country would be better off with the Conservatives. And
what would you be doing if you're not Prime Minister? What is the one thing that you would move on and do?
I'm not going to think about that because, look, I've got 50 days to fight a vital election. I want to win re-election. I think this government's doing some good things for our country and I want to keep on doing that. It's the country's choice. If they hoof me out and go for the other guy, I'll have to think of something else, but I hope I'll still be a Member of Parliament. I love serving my constituents. I love politics. I love public service. I think it's what I care about. It's a vocation for me. And so in the unhappy event I'm not Prime Minister on May the 8th, the people of West Oxfordshire I hope will stick with me and I'll stick with them.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks. Thank you. Was that half an hour?
Yeah.
Whiz by.
Whiz by.
Very good.